Hi, my name is Allegra and I'm going to do a library haul today. I apologize for the bad lighting. I don't have a good lighting setup and it's wintertime. I'm trying, y'all. Thanks for being patient. Really quick before I get into this, what is a library haul and why am I doing this? I don't buy a lot of books. I do have the Book of the Month subscription, but I'm actually debating if I'm going to keep that. And otherwise, I'm just not a big book buyer. I've always been a library user ever since I was a little kid, and especially with trying to make sure that I watch what I consume as far as material goods and my own budget. Libraries have been a godsend for someone who loves to read. I don't know how I'm going to structure these because my library does allow me to check out books for 3 weeks. And I am reading physical TBR books that I own on top of library books. Some of these books I am going to be able to renew, so I might have them for 6 weeks instead of just 3. We'll see what happens. It's my channel. I'll figure out what I want to do with it. Also, before I get into the books, when I am showing a physical book on camera, I will have a post-it note covering the barcode for privacy reasons. So if you see the cover and it looks a little weird, there's something out of place on it, you're right, you're not seeing things. There's a bright pink sticky note on it. The first book in this library haul is The Dragon Republic. If you can't see the cover really well, it's because my library puts a plastic protective covering on everything. It's a good idea, but it's not great for videos. So this is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. You've probably heard of this. It doesn't really need an introduction. It is the second book in the Poppy War series. And here's the thing. I actually didn't like the Poppy War, but I see a lot of potential in her writing as well as in where this story could go. So I'm going to give the second book a try. I went into the first book with super high expectations too, and I think that probably had a big impact on what I thought of the book. Next in my library haul is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. There we go. This is an urban fantasy. Again, it's going to sound like I pick books that I probably wouldn't like. That's not true. I just happen to grab these in a weird order. I love N.K. Jemisin's writing. I don't usually like urban fantasy. I am reading the Broken Earth trilogy right now, and I'm waiting on The Stone Sky, which is the third book in that series. It's on hold at my library for another 10 weeks. And I really wanted to continue to enjoy her writing style. This book has also been recommended to me by people who I trust to understand what my taste is, so we will see what happens. All I know about it is that it's an urban fantasy set in New York City, and it follows something about the city having a soul, which will be an interesting ride. The next book that I have on my physical library haul is The First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is, I don't know how to hold these. This is a science fiction space opera. It's the first in a series. It follows 3 different characters. First Sister, who is a comfort woman. Hero, who is an assassin who, according to the blurb at least, is tired of conforming to what people expect of them. And Leto, who is a soldier who's been abandoned by the military after losing a war. It sounds like the war is happening on Mars, so that's really interesting. I love sci-fi. I don't usually read series before they're finished. I've been burned a few too many times, but it's been a while since I read a good meaty sci-fi, so I picked this one up, and I've got plenty of other books to occupy my time while I wait for the other books in this series to come out. Next on this library haul, we have 13 Ways. Why am I holding it like that? There we go. We have 13 Ways of Looking at a Fat Girl by Mona Awad. I read Bunny last summer, and I'm still thinking about that book on a regular basis. Mona Awad's writing style kind of blew me away. The story was very weird, which is absolutely up my alley. And when I found out that she had written another book, I had to get my hands on it as soon as I could. I don't know a lot about this book other than the fact that Mona Awad wrote it, and is about a young woman who is trying to live up to societal expectations. It does sound like there's going to be some content warnings regarding weight, discussions of weight, and eating, and potentially disordered eating. So just a heads up if that's something that you have concerns about. If this is half as darkly funny as Bunny was, I am going to be really glad that I invested my time in it. Next, we have the only physical nonfiction book that I have on this list, and that is We Are Never Meeting in Real Life by Samantha Irby. Samantha Irby is a blogger at bitchesgottaeat.com. I'm clearly not super familiar with that. This book was recommended when people were asking about stories or essays about what it's like to be a woman-loving woman in her 30s or 40s, since a lot of fiction especially is targeted at people in their teens and 20s who are in that situation. I am looking forward to reading something a little humorous as far as my nonfiction goes. A lot of my 2020 nonfiction was not humorous, and this will be a nice break from that. Next, I have Soft Science by Franny Choi. This is a short little poetry collection. Franny Choi is a queer Asian American author. I used to read so much poetry, and I even used to write poetry, and that definitely hasn't been my focus for the last several years. What better way to get back into writing poetry than to read poetry? This particular collection, it looks like it focuses on the intersections of violence, race, anger, technology, gender, and loneliness, which I think is very appropriate for 2020 and going into 2021. I believe when was this published? This was published in 2019. It's a short little book. It'll be pretty easy to get back into my poetry slam. Wow, I'm a dork. And I'm obviously looking forward to it because I wouldn't have checked it out from the library if I hadn't been. It's such a weird thing to say. And the last book on my physical library haul is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. This is a mystery thriller novel. I don't know if there's anything supernatural about it, and I'm kind of glad that I don't know. We'll see how I feel about that once I read it. I haven't read anything by T. Kingfisher before, and she has been recommended to me several times. This book, I think, is her newest one, or one of her newer ones, and it is about a young woman named Mouse who has to go and clean up her grandparents' house after they've passed away. Her grandmother was a hoarder, so it's a huge deal, and she finds her step-grandfather's journals and kind of dismisses what was in them because they don't make a lot of sense. They sound like ravings, according to the synopsis. But then the things in the journal start happening to her. That's all I know about that book. I need something kind of spooky for my cold winter nights in January and February. I know it's not Halloween season, but it's always Halloween for me. I'm hoping that it's a nice, spooky story that I can get lost in. I also have an ebook and an audiobook checked out from my library. If I can figure it out, I'll put them here while I'm talking about them. The ebook that I have is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This is a dark comedy, horror comedy, which I think Bunny was considered as well. I am hoping it's even a little close to Bunny. I just loved that book. I should do a whole video on it. Plain Bad Heroines follows two stories in different timelines. One is the story of these girls at a boarding school who kind of create a club around another girl who they're obsessed with, and then something really tragic happens. And then in the present day, it's following, I believe, a film crew who are trying to film a fiction story based on what happened to those original girls. The original girls created the club around the person they're obsessed with called Plain Bad Heroines. That's the name of the book. This is also a dark academia book, I believe, and I haven't really delved a lot into that genre, even though it feels like it would absolutely be my thing. I hope that this one is. Of course I do. I keep saying that for every book. It's such a weird thing to say. This book also has illustrations. I was a little worried about getting it in the ebook form, but it was available first, and it's working out just fine in the ebook format. And finally, my audiobook that I have checked out from the library is Emotional Agility. This is by Susan David. She is a South African researcher who kind of rose to international attention when she wrote an article about emotional agility and discussing how human beings tend to get stuck in hooks of emotional thought that keep us from progressing forward. It's a bit of a self-helpy book. I read those from time to time. I do think that this particular topic is something that I need to work on, and I think nonfiction, self-help style books are great audiobooks to be listening to while you're cleaning or doing other activities. I like to knit and color, and it's kind of a nice thing to have in the background while I'm doing those things. So I have 7 physical books, 1 audiobook, and 1 ebook checked out from my library right now, making for 9 library books out. I am hoping to get through these all before they're due, but I have a feeling at least a couple of them will need to be renewed. I don't really have anything else to say except use your local library, and I will see you next time. Bye!